All right, Webster here, joined with Ren for another Ren's Playtime Corner. I don't know what episode we at, but when this comes out, it'll be the right one. Ren, how you doing?
I'm trying to fight a cold, but other than that, I'm fine.
That's good. That's good to hear. It's weird being on the internet and hearing people's conversations. And one of the things that there are these things that come out. And, you said you saw the memes before we actually started conversing about Aisha Curry. And this isn't
Mhm.
the first time some things that Aisha Curry has said that has sparked internet conversation.
Mm.
You should have seen the video from her on and you, not you as in room, but you as in the audience who are watching, on her Call Me Daddy podcast, and the things that she said with regards not wanting to be a wife, not wanting to have children, and essentially a lot of what's being interpreted is um like she didn't want to be in this marriage. Like she's in this marriage and everything, but a lot of the conversations just are really going down a path, or have gone on a path of, and I've heard this from men and women, you have nothing to complain about. You are literally married to one of the best basketball players that ever lived. You
Right.
are rich. You have no wants for anything when it comes to financial. And then you have had opportunities to do things from your cookbooks to cooking shows. So a lot of the discourse, not all, but a lot of discourse, yeah, it's kind of skewed from the male side, but some women too are like, what are you complaining about? Why are you even speaking of these things
Right.
in this setting? Vern, you got a little taste of this. Like what's your opinion on all of this so far?
She's still a human being. Okay. She still has thoughts and opinions. Yes, it's kind of. I can understand how people feel like you said, you rich, you got a NBA champion husband, you got all these perks and benefits. What are you complaining about? There's average women that can't even get married. We most likely will be a baby mom before a wife, you know. So for you to get the title and be rich and wealthy and all this other stuff, what you complain about? I mean, I see it as the grass is always greener on the other side. Because she has those things does not mean she's happy. You know, it could be like she feels some type of way about certain things. Um, And yeah, that's her right to feel that way, but she's still married to
Right,
the man. So
right.
she still feels like, we all have our moments like I could have done this, I wish I could have done that, I wish this would have happened instead of this happening. Um, but at the end of the day, she's still married to that man. And I seen Steph Curry commenting on it was a rapper, I forgot his name. Killer Mike, was it Killer Mike?
Might have
Um
been, I don't know.
Yeah, I think Killer Mike said like it made a comment like go get your girl Steph Curry, what she's out here making you looking
Hmm.
crazy.
Hmm.
And Steph is like, we good over here, whatever she said in this interview was her feelings at the moment, but obviously she's still married to this man. Not everyone could be Beyonce and Jay-Z because you see they don't really say nothing. They don't
Right.
say no, but I'm sure, but she has said a lot in her music with Jay
Yep.
Z cheating, with her feelings like I could have left. I don't have to be your wife. I don't have to do this. I don't. She says a lot of things in her music. She turns her pain into art, but not every celebrity has that gift that they can do that. So they express their aggravation like I would. It's I don't want to do this. It's hard out here for that. It's she's human. But I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, girls, which you got an NBA's champion as a husband. Yeah, I see you in your moment. I'll give you a moment, but come back to reality. It's hard out here. You could be, you could you could have it worse. Trust me. Trust
Right.
and believe.
I think
So
a lot of it, in my opinion, I've had some conversations with one or two women in my life about this, and one of the things that it really came across was that her struggling with her own identity, with
Mm,
regards to having this husband who is super uber famous and accomplished, and then her, not to diminish, but just being Steph Curry's wife, and
mm,
just being the mother of his children, and her only role really is being wife and being mother, when she expected or thought she would be doing, I'll say I'll say so much more, because her words in some ways make it seem like that her role, her position, her job is, and again, it's interpretation, is less than that dream career that she thought she would have had if she had married and
right.
had children. So the identity issue is something that I have heard before. I've heard,
Mm,
when I've heard of friends of mine talk about, and I'm talking about female friends talk about women they know in their marriages, and how, like, they wake up, that whole wake up one morning like there's some person I'm gonna be with, where I'm trying to find myself, sort of thing. It When I hear these conversations, it is always women who lose themselves, who don't have a sense of identity outside of the marriage, outside of being a mother. And as a man, as a man who was married, I never not knew who I was in that marriage. My
mm,
questions now, as far as my identity, come from, okay, I'm no longer married. So much of who I was and what I, not say what I stood for, but me as a man, was tied to being a husband and being a father. My
mm,
wife has since passed. I am no longer a husband. Who am I?
mm,
Like, those traits are still there, but there is nowhere to put those two. That doesn't go to anywhere, if I'm what I'm saying makes sense. So for me, the loss is what is causing me to look at my identity and figure out who I am in some
mm,
aspect. When I hear the conversation with Aisha Curry, it really comes across as, is all I am a mother and a wife. I
mm,
wanted more. I thought I should, dare I say, deserve more, than that. And again, that argument, that conversation is not something I haven't heard before. However,
mm,
I still think it's, not saying laughable and then not to me demeaning, but I think it's one of those things where, as a man, I don't comprehend how someone in that position does not have the space to find their, or carve out their own identity in the confines of the being married or being a wife, as well as being a mother. And that's
mm,
where I always have these questions. So I asked women that I knew who are married or were married, um, as far as them struggling with that. And the one or two said they did, but at that time, when one of them, same situation I am, lost a spouse, basically told me their husband supported them in finding who they are. Even my late spouse, there was no like, oh, you're trying to figure things out, I'm here to support you, because
mm,
you are trying to figure out where you fit in the world, what your passions are. And even with Aisha, again, outside looking in, she has room to explore what she wants to do because of her own
mm,
success outside of Steph. So I think
mm,
because of that, when you hear comments like that, you're like, huh? What are
mm,
you talking about? Like,
mm.
your comments and your feelings don't jive with what we see and what you present to the world, because
Well,
you
I mean,
have
that's the
things.
problem. That's
Yeah,
the problem right there. We try to paint somebody's picture if we don't even know them. Trust me,
right.
I know all about that because of what I post and what I used to model and stuff like that. People just think I'm just titties and ass, and they don't know I actually have some sort of education.
Wait,
It's
you're not?
like,
I'm joking.
like
Darn it.
it's I get what you're saying, but honestly, I think she just had a moment because she like outside her life seems perfect, right? but we don't never know what goes on behind anybody's closed doors. She might just be bored, honestly, because I'm like, what? Nobody, your kids are. I don't think she has babies. Babies, they grown, they old enough to do things on their own, at least to the extent like they can get some food if they need some food. Like they can survive like an hour or two without her being in the face. That she can, if she wanted to do another career or something, she can do that. I think she just had a moment that she just wanted
She's had a
to.
lot of moments though.
Well, she's human.
Y-
Like you don't ever second guess certain things at sometimes. Like I wish I could have done this instead of that. Like what would my life would have been? She always been with Seth. Didn't they know each other since high school or something?
Yep.
So like that's a long time to be with somebody. Like that's a very long time to be with a person. So maybe she bored. She could just be bored. Like, dang, I wish I would have had a whole phase. Like, maybe she thinks that way. Like, maybe I wish I would have done this. I would have went to school and did this before I just became Steph Curry's wife. She probably felt like I never really got my own identity because I just was with Steph and that was it. And yeah, because Steph is more famous and more popular than her, yes, we don't really. I don't see Curry much until she says something. Like only time I see her be trending is when she's talking. So it's like that's it. Other
And
than that, it's like okay, you married to Steph Curry's wife. That's all I know you from.
and what's wrong with that though? That's my question. As a man,
Mm.
what's wrong with that? Look, Stedman and Oprah ain't married. But we know
Right.
Stedman because of Oprah. Do I care what Stedman does? Nope.
Stephen don't say nothing.
But
No, you
exactly,
never
that's
see
my point. Stedman has never,
him.
and he's might have done interviews over the years, but he's
mm,
never spoken about their relationship and his issues or lack of issues in the relationship. And
mm,
to some degree, that's where it comes from. You
mm,
have your
mm,
feelings, and I will say this. I will say personal opinion based on what she expressed, and I know what you said as far as like outside looking in, yes, but based on what she expressed,
mm.
it seems like she just wants attention. And
Because she's talking, she wants attention.
no, no, but about what she's talking about, not that she's talking. She could talk about cooking. She could talk about her passion. She could talk about so many other things.
Mm-mm-mm.
But the fact that she talks about her marriage, and again, not saying ins and outs, but the fact that the conversations are, hey, yeah, I didn't really want to get married. I didn't really like stuff like that, or and again, the other clip I showed you from years ago. I mean, so this
Mhm.
isn't a new sort of phenomenon. So with that, it comes a point where as and I heard somebody say this before, you said talk about she has feelings. Yes, she has feelings, but she also has a marriage and a husband. And
Okay.
there's a point where the things you say and the things you do in public cast a certain image of your marriage and your relationship. Um, I'm not married anymore. However, even how I presented myself online, I was conscious of, hey, that's my wife. There are
Mhm.
certain things, even though just I may think it's cool. I think of, okay, how do I represent her? How do I represent a marriage? What like boundaries are there? You and I talk, you know
I
things,
hear
but
you, but honestly, I think it's to me it's not that deep. She says she did it. Like it's hard to explain. Like when you start dating someone, you want to get to know the person. Like the first I'll tell you a story about my child's father.
mhm,
I didn't know him. I known him since high school, and he never came up to me, talked to me, approached me, nothing. And just one day, a girl came to me and was like, "My friend has a crush on you." I
mhm,
said, "Who?" And they said, "Michael." That's my child's father's name. I'm like, "Who?" Because I never knew him of his existence because he never talked to me.
right.
So she told me like this whole story about he likes me and he wants to take me to the prom and all this other stuff. So I said, "Oh, Okay, that's cool. Have him come to me and talk to me. I don't, he should be the one talking to me, not you talking to me. So then he talked to me and he seemed like a really nice guy. He is a nice guy. Um and took me to the prom. Now, I never would have thought of him as a boyfriend, you know, cause he was kind of like real nerdy, like the old school geek and type of thing. Spandex, Poindexter type of look. But he was a nice person,
Hmm.
and he was a good person. And that's how I got to know him more. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we should date. But for the first impression, I'm like, I don't know about this. But once you get to know a person and you're like, you know what? He's not a bad guy. He
Right.
takes care of this, he does this. So her saying that she never thought of him in that way is not a bad thing,
No, it's
because you
not.
still got to get to know a person to see if there's actual chemistry, that y'all actually have a connection, that y'all actually can build something here. So that, I mean, I hear you. I know it's a man thing. Some men, just anything could set a man whole point
I
of view off. It's like, if I don't want to be disrespected and you disrespect me, you say something and I go off like, oh, you too aggressive. So I'm just supposed to sit here and just let you say certain things. Like, certain things can, uh, it's crazy. Like, the way people interact with certain things and how people speak and say things is interesting to me. Maybe
well,
because I'm just so mellow type of
yeah,
person. Like, everything don't offend me. It has to be something really offensive for it
right.
to offend me. But I seen what she said,
Hmm.
and I was trying to figure out why it was trending, because it's like, well, I didn't. It's all she was saying is, I didn't think that my life would turn out this way. That's pretty much what she's saying. Not saying, oh, I never. Well, just like the other football player, the football player with the teeth
Yeah,
marrying that light skinned girl,
yeah,
and people was talking about that, but I'm like, that's their lives.
yeah,
Like, and it's like, oh, she said the same thing. I never thought of him as X, Y, and Z, and but because of that, doesn't mean that they not meant for each other.
right,
You know, like, my child's father is a good father. I still, I won based off of that alone. Even though we were not married or still together, I still have a good father figure for my child. So that's a win for me. And
right.
and so things happen sometimes that maybe they not the right, you might think they not the right person, but you still gotta get to know them.
Yeah,
You can never judge a book by its cover. You gotta
yeah,
get to know people.
yeah. I don't disagree. Like the stuff early on, like I don't have an issue with that. I don't. I think not an issue. I just know that with how some of the things she said and how she painted things, especially with that whole identity crisis. I use in quotations. That's a
Hmm.
bit hyperbolic to say, but for me and many others, men and women, like her searching for her identity and maybe how she's expressing it can be construed a certain way. And as a man, and again, I still, even though it's not been, I still come from a lens of, oh, I'm married. It's even now, it's weird to
Hmm.
say I'm not, but I still come from that lens. It can be very embarrassing. Um,
I
there are
hear you.
things my wife and I, uh, we talked, especially our online presence. There were many things that have gone on personally between us that
Mm-hmm.
were very key to her story and her online persona.
Mm-hmm.
But she talked to me about these things. She talked to me about how did I feel about disclosing these aspects of our relationship, these aspects of what we've lost and what we've gone through. How do you feel about me putting these things in a public forum? She came to me and talked to me before she even did any of those things to get my opinion. Again, Aisha probably did that with Steph. You know, you know, I wouldn't doubt that. I would hope so. So I'm giving benefit of doubt in that one. But my wife and I did talk. If there were things that I did or posted online that she said, oh, maybe that's not so much on your brand, or I don't think that's maybe the way you want to go. I don't necessarily think that's, representative of you and what you're trying to do. I would take heed to what she said because this woman is my wife. I may not agree, but
Mm,
she's coming at it from an aspect of, even if, you know, I didn't say, hey, this is my wife, and she didn't say this is my husband, or like our online presences weren't that way, but they were still representative of the fact that, hey, this is a married woman, this is a married man, and we conducted ourselves in that way, shape, and form. So if there was something that either one of us thought was maybe too far, or maybe, hey, this is a bit intimate between us that I'm going to share, I'm going to talk to you about this first. Are
mm.
you okay with sharing this to the me sharing this to the world? Um, because it can have certain ramifications in
Well, I'm
the way
sure
things.
she talked to Seth, and like
Yeah, that's what
I'm
I'm saying.
sure she
I'm
didn't
sure
just
she did
walk
as
on
well.
to the. Yeah, I'm sure she
Yeah,
didn't just walk into the interview and just like, yeah, I'm gonna talk bad about him. I'm sure they had a conversation. Like, I'm
right,
gonna go on this interview. We gonna probably talk about our
right,
relationship and how and this says so it's gonna get real. I'm gonna be
right,
honest about it,
right,
and that's her truth.
right.
Steph
And I
don't
agree with
Steph
you on
don't
that
seem a problem with it. Like,
one. Right. And that's why I think too that one of the things that hasn't been discussed, and I heard these conversations, is they probably had a conversation about this. They probably have a
mm-hmm,
conversation, I'm assuming, again, based on what I perceive from them and how they present themselves.
mm,
I would bet easy money that they had a conversation before she goes anywhere to talk.
right.
And they would set boundaries of, okay, this is not something I'm comfortable with. No, I wouldn't talk about, I would assume that, um, based on the respectable people they seem like that they are. But
Mm,
again, we still don't know those details, and we can only take what people say. And I will say this, um, I again, based on perception, I find it interesting that if it is, not saying she's doing things for show, because people do things for clout, and I don't put past people in this day and age. But
mm,
I find it interesting that based on what is she been able to do with the opportunity she's been afforded by her husband's accomplishments,
mm,
um, and the fact that she's been able to do things on her own. You know what? Yes, they help that her husband's famous, but clearly she has talents unto herself, and she's been able to do things as far as cookbooks and cooking shows, and whatever else she's done.
mm,
I find it interesting that the identity piece still comes into play, considering, again, she clearly has things that are separate from being Steph Curry's wife. And I think for
mm,
me, that is when the like, what are you talking about comes into play. Because honestly, I wouldn't know. I know Aisha Curry from the stuff she does. I know she's his wife, but I only hear about her with the stuff she does, like the cookbooks,
mm,
the cooking shows. Like when I used to watch Food Network like that and hear that, like that's how I really know of her, personally speaking. But
mm.
to have her talk about the identity aspects and trying to find herself in her identity,
Well,
that's when
because
I'm
none of that is the most attention. Like, I seen the cookbooks and the commercials for the cooking show with, but I never watched none of it. I never bought no book. So yes, she is still being overshadowed by her husband because she has this talent of cooking. She's a homemaker. She's a wife, whatever. Um, she probably feel like she probably do want more attention. Like, I want to be. I don't want to just be Steph Curry's wife. Is the show
but
even still
why?
on?
But why?
I
That's
don't.
see, that's the thing. I think, and that's where the crux of some of the arguments come from. That you talked about that overshadowedness. What does it
Mm,
matter? And I think that's where people come from. Like, what does it matter? Going back to the whole Stedman thing. Well, look,
mm.
Stedman, to everything I understand, is a successful businessman or whatever he's in his own right. I
I've
don't even know who
never
keeps
seen
Oprah.
Stedman. Every time
Oh, really?
I
You've never seen him in real life?
I just see Oprah, and I might
But
see a picture of him every once in a while, but I never really seen
that's what
him
he's
with
doing his own
Oprah like
thing.
that. She always with Gail. That's what, like, I just
But
never.
I but that's a really good point to that, though. You
Mm,
never really see them, especially now. They're getting older and whatnot. But my point with that is, what does it matter if your spouse over, you're in your spouse's shadow if you still doing your own thing? And like that's
yeah.
where the question comes into play. Like, why does it even matter? You guys are a unit. You know,
She
my
wants the attention. She wants some
and
of the
therein lies
spotlight.
the problem, if that's the case. The ego and
Okay.
not accepting, hey, this is my life. I have a, again, great life. I am
Hmm.
afforded everything. Your ego still comes into play where that selfishness, and that's what it really is. It's a selfishness, like, hey, I want some of the spotlight too. Why? What does it benefit your family? What, look, because I tell you straight up, if the situation was reversed, Steph is not worrying about the spotlight. He's worrying about taking care of his family and making sure his
Mm,
family's straight. At some point in time, he will not be playing basketball anymore.
right.
And she will do whatever, and she may eclipse him. I will guarantee and bet money if that ever happens, Steph won't care.
Hmm.
And that's where my question always, like, what does it matter if one spouse is overshadowing the other? Your family is taken care of. Your family is good. Everybody's doing what they want to do in life. What does it matter? And if she's seeking, if I don't know, but if she's seeking attention because she wants more of the spotlight, she wants some of the attention, then that, in my opinion, is a problem. Because
Why? Why
what
is that?
what
She
what does
can't
this,
want a part of the spotlight. She can't
but
be
what,
bored. Like she
that's the
probably
selfishness.
bored.
But
She
that's the
probably she
selfishness.
been in the back. She been in the back. She been
Again,
a good wife. Maybe she's like, nah, I want to do something different.
what what does any of that, but that's selfishness, though. That's pride, that's ego. Those are things that destroy relationships. Those aren't things that make relationships better. You're
I
thinking
do
about
not
self.
see her signing up for Love and Hip Hop. I
No, no,
don't
but
see her on no
I
stripper
agree with you
pole.
on that.
Like, what if she just wants like maybe she wants some podcast of her own, maybe like
And that's
what's wrong
fine.
with that?
Nothing is wrong with that. But when your purpose, and again, I'm not saying her purpose is that because I don't know. But
Mm,
if your purpose is that you want some of the spotlight too, that is selfish. And in an
mm,
aspect of, you are a spouse, you are a mother or father, and you are trying to make a family unit work. If your goal is, if your purpose is, I want me in that regard, then you're not doing these things for the benefit of your family. You're not doing things for the benefit of your marriage. I
mm,
will guarantee you, and this is how men think. Steph is out there not thinking about, as far as his accomplishments are concerned, not thinking about, oh, this is me. No, it's, oh, I can make more money. I can do this for my wife. I can do this for my kids. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this for them. It's
mm.
one of the things they always say, especially now, men make money and think about who they can take care of and how to take care of family. Women make money and think about themselves.
Mm.
And I don't disagree with that statement as a whole. Um, and not like all women are like that, but how our society is set up, and women talking about being independent, and how the focus is on money and
We
monetary.
have to be independent because
But
we are
no,
not being married. We are,
yes, but my
we
point
have to
is,
take care of ourselves.
and I'll give you an example. So when my wife and I met, I was working in higher education. I was under contract, and it was like my second job out of grad school. I wasn't making nothing, but this is damn near 20 years ago. So I was making 33K a year, right? Single man. I had no car payment, I had no real bills. I mean, that was great money for me. The minute I proposed to my wife, I said, I need a better job, because while I may not be in a position to take care of all our finances, I need to be in a better position to take care of things. And that,
Mm.
outside of my own personal advancement, was the way I looked at it. It's like, hey, I make more money. I'm better able to make sure things here are okay. If something happens to my wife or her wife's position, I can cover more of it. And then ultimately, over the course of years, I got to a point where I made enough money to where my wife didn't have to work.
Okay.
But that's how men operate. That's how men think. Did my wife think that way? No. And again, not to disparage her, because obviously, but that's not how women think or are taught to operate in the course of a relationship when it comes to money. They in many respects are not taught to think of as a if I make more money, I can take care of my family for more because their job in the family is not necessarily making the money. And even if it is, if they got a husband, a lot of times, even split 50-50, you're not thinking, oh, I'm making more money, I can do more for the family. Nah. And again, there's nothing wrong with that in that aspect. That's how we're taught, how we brought up, is how we think. But men, in many respects, if excuse me, if you are marriage minded, I'll put it that way. If you are marriage minded, that's the way you think and approach things when it comes to your finances. And even if you're not, I would say a lot of us, we make more money, we think of, oh, how can we help out our mom? How can we help out our sister? How can we do this? How can we do, because I've been there, I've done that,
Mm-hmm.
with regards to that. So I think we as men typically think about how we can give, what we can do for people with our money, not what we can do for ourselves. Even now, um, I'm better now because it's just me and the child. But even before, it was very hard for me to buy things for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Even just things as far as just like a couple pairs of pants or shirts. Oh, I need a new computer. Oh, let me, I need to, get that. Why? Because I'm thinking, oh, what does my wife need? What does my daughter
Mm-hmm.
need? What does, what's needed around the house needs to get done? Oh, this could go to that bill or this bill. That's the way I thought and continue to think. I'm a little bit better now in that regard. And also I'm cheap. So that works in my favor as well. But that's how a lot of men to think in the context of a marriage. So when I hear a woman talk about, or even hints of, not just a woman, but when someone speak very selfishly about what they want in the context of a marriage, I always have a problem with that, because what does it matter? It's about the benefit of the family unit and the progression of the family unit. That should be your main goal. You doing the other things is great. Like me doing this was an outlet for me and home, and doing this and doing it's like that's my way of fun. But that's not my primary focus, not my primary, even if I was
Right.
making money off of this, that's not
Right.
what it was. And when you hear conversations like this, and again, this is all interpretation, okay? All interpretation. But when you hear conversation like this and you get that perception of in it for self, and I'm about self, that for me and a lot of people, especially when it comes from a woman, um, it tends to set off red flags, and it tends to have people asking questions. Again, that may not be the case. We're going all on interpretation and what's said, and how things are said lead us. And again, the whole conversation, or at least the whole context played out there before this. It is, it can come off a certain way. But let me ask you this though, even going into that, from that, you put out a post on your Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this goes a lot into relationships, marriage, or whatnot, and you said, what do you think happened between men and women's relationships? Why are there more divorces in single men and women than our marriages and relationships? And I'll say, going back to Aisha Curry and them, selfishness. I think that's one of the primary reasons. I think selfishness, because one of your comments, and we were talking about earlier, that um, I how could I put this? It really is a bad taste in my mouth when I hear women just get in the comments and blame men. And I say, have you ever been married? Because if these people have ever been married, I don't. Well, no, I think they lack a fundamental comprehension of relationships, how relationships work. I think a lot of people who've been married lack a fundamental relationships, how relationships work. But I think a lot of it comes down to selfishness, and I think
Mm-hmm.
men and women. But I hear the selfishness when I hear about divorce, when I hear people talk about the divorce stories, I hear about how people broke up. Even in the comments, men lost the art of romance, and women realize they can have more. Right there,
Okay.
there is a women having more. There's a selfishness. It's like I want more. I deserve
Mm.
more.
Yes, that
Right there.
person does sound selfish.
But her
Um,
comments, look, I'm not going to ascribe those to her, but her comments come from an air of selfishness in that
mhm.
regard. And also it's like because men have a sense of entitlement. I don't mean it insultingly. You're with me. I'm the head of the household. Women are brought up to believe in just to accept things as they are. Now, I have fundamental issues with a lot of that. I think we both have been brought up to accept things as they are because men are taught that or said that, hey, if you want me, you to accept me my worst. But I gotta accept you at your worst. We're taught to accept you with all of your trauma, all of your baggage. And again, if you're I'm not saying this to, down anybody because I have no issues with anybody, but
Okay.
to accept you with all your kids from multiple daddies, you ain't a real man if you ain't
Lord.
trying to be like, but those are the comments we hear as men. So to hear a woman say that women are taught to accept, I was like, you really no, we're taught to accept people as who they are and how they come to us, regardless. That's what we're supposed to accept us. But now we're talking about I want more, I deserve more, and this and that, and this and that. And I think that selfishness is a fundamental issue because love is selfless. Love is about giving to the other person. Love
Well,
is
I heard a friend of mine told me, love is not unconditionally, and this is a man that said this. There's conditions with love as well. I'm trying to find the comment of the post that you're talking about because there was men that had their 2 cents too.
oh no,
One
I
man
saw
tried to blame women.
yes,
Women
and
are
I
the
saw that too.
majority, the reason because women are divorcing more. Trust and believe she ain't divorcing that man for no reason.
Well,
You
no,
know,
no. No, I think it's very telling that women divorce men at I think the stat is a 70% rate. Um, I think that that is telling in many respects of how can I put this? The level of fed upness and the lack of what because look, let's be real. Not everyone women's getting look, a majority of women aren't getting divorced because men are cheating. A majority of women aren't getting divorced because men are hitting on them. Because realistically, if you look at statistics, domestic abuse is not as high as people claim it is. That's statistics. And they say the average rate of cheating is like 22, 24%. And it's the same for women. It's about statistically even. It's like 24% for men and 22% for women. So it's statistically about the same. So you're talking about over 75% of people in relationships or people in general haven't cheated on their spouses. So the reasons that women always give are like they're
I've
hyperbolic.
seen a lot of divorce court. You sure about that? Because it's
Yes.
multiple reasons. Majority, they say the top main thing of divorces is finances.
Yes.
When a woman feels like they have to become more the provider than the man, they feel like, well, what am I doing here then? You know,
And
so
that's
that's
a
the
problem.
main reason. That's
And
the
that's a
top
problem.
one. I
But
think two
that's a
is
problem.
cheating. Two
Yeah.
is cheating is why divorce is, and of
Hmm.
course domestic violence and
Right.
so on and so forth.
Let's
But
let's let's
yeah,
talk about that though. Finances. Money's
hmm
made up. Yes, finances cause stress and everything and lack thereof. But the fact you stated that she feels like, so she's
hmm
assessed the value of that man in that marriage based on what he brings in. That is a problem because we are a lot more men and women than what we bring in financially and what we bring in materially. And if you feel like feel like not that he ain't done nothing to you, he's a good guy, blah blah blah. If it's about money and that's why you're divorcing, that's not about love. Because
I think it's more to from what I read and seen of what they said is the reason people divorce and all that. It's not just I want to be taken care of type of thing. Because of course I'm a woman. I want a man to take care of me. Of course that doesn't mean you got to pay all the bills. Of course not. Especially when we're not married. No, I'm not expecting that. Um, but I don't want to be in control in that way. Money is the reason why Trump has this huge fucking ego and all this other shit that he got going on is because he thought money was the root of everything. He ain't a good looking man. He ain't even a good man. But because he has money, people are listening to him. They following what he's saying. They doing what he's saying because he has money, power, and control. So if I have all the money, power, control, then what the fuck is you here for? What are you here for? And because of that ego mindset, because money, all that power, money, control creates a huge ego. Um, it's like, well, if you're gonna be here, give me 5 minutes while I talk to Jim, James, and Ricky, and cook me some dinner. It's a money can be the root of all evil,
Yeah.
based off of the ego alone. I've seen plenty of podcasts of men saying I would never marry or date a woman that makes more money than me, because then I'm giving her all the power and control of
See,
it.
I have
I mean,
problems with
that's
that as
not
well.
fair, but yes, these things, people think this way. It's unfortunate because you saying, "Oh, women want to be independent." I don't want to be independent. I have to be independent. I don't
Right,
want to be no fucking independent black woman. I ain't trying to do all that, but I have to be, because if
right,
I'm not, who's taking care of the bills? Who's
right,
taking care of my household? Who's taking care of my child?
right,
All this weighs on me. So I
right,
have to do certain things in order to keep my head above water. Some things are just naturally happening because of how the environment evolved. Before, women could not have podcasts. We could not go online and express our feelings and emotions like we are now. And a lot of things online is off putting to a lot of people because they just see 2 minutes of a video, 2 seconds of a picture, and they want to create their own ideas in their own head. Just like I'm reading some of this right now from the post. It's on Facebook, of reasons. Um, Social media is one of the major factors. This is the one from Thomas. Says 80% of divorces are from women who are trying to find something better or want to win her now ex-husband's money and assets. When men divorce is something subsequential, like she's cheating. Okay. Now that can be some factuals. Yes, women are the majority reason of divorces. Um, Trying to find something better. I don't know what every circumstances of these divorces, but sometimes women just be bored. Like, I'm bored, I'm tired of this relationship, I just want to go. Like how some men are feeling about Aisha Curry saying, I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have did this. I wish I could have did that. In some sort, is she resenting her husband for it though? Because this is a choice she made at a very young age
exactly.
to be married to this man, and they've been married since high school, and they in they mid 30s maybe now. They getting up there. They're getting older, and people change when you get older. Your mindset changes. It's called
True,
evolving. If you
true.
still have the same mindset since high school, that's a problem. You're supposed to grow up. You're supposed to mature. You're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to think, maybe I shouldn't have done this in the past. Maybe I should have tried this. Maybe I should have done this. Like right now, I'm thinking of going to college, at my
Mhm.
age. Like, why not? It's certain things that people lives change. Something can happen that makes you feel a certain way at a certain time in a certain moment. But yes, I hear what y'all men saying, but if Seth not worried about it, why
And
y'all
that
worried
I
about
agree. I
it?
It's not about okay. I agree with that point. If Seth ain't worried about it, like you said, we all good. I agree. Look, that's his marriage. However, I will say his woman, we are not, this is not the 80s. This is not her going on Oprah and having a conversation with Oprah. And
Right.
one, being a mostly female audience, but also two, you didn't have social media. You didn't have the
Mm,
commentaries that you did. You didn't have the way things are framed. And mine ain't talking about things being taken out of context. It's just I listened to what she said. I totally understand as someone who was married for almost 17 years how if my wife got on a podcast and said some of the things she did, also knowing that the endeavors my wife had outside of us, it would look not favorably on our union and toward me. And if I went out and,
I didn't hear her say I used to twerk on some
no,
dick.
no,
Like I
no,
didn't hear her say none of
listen,
that. I didn't
this,
hear her say nothing crazy wild. She was like, I wish I could have done this instead of that. That's
let
all
me
I
tell
heard.
you, you're right. But let me tell you, as someone who was married for a very long time, there are certain things you do not discuss the inner workings of your marriage. You do not discuss certain aspects of your marriage and how you really feel about things, especially in public. I
Mm,
was talking to somebody that said, we've talked about some things on, things, but in general, I was
right,
saying like there are things that people have no clue about some of the trials and tribulations that my wife and I face that I've known my whole life.
right,
Why? Because it wasn't their business. But two, that's not what I want to put out there to the world. Like that was between my spouse and I, and vice versa. So I'm certainly not going on to a podcast or any sort of platform and talking about these things where my wife or my union, I don't care if she agrees with it. I'm not talking about it in a way where anyone could assume anything, because I am all about protecting my home and my marriage. And to talk to you, to think about the unconditional love thing, love is conditional. Excuse me, relationships are conditional. Love,
okay,
I don't think is. I think I can love someone, but you can get to a point where this relationship is not working for me. This is not a
right,
relationship I can be in. I still love you. Hell, I can still be in love with you because of who you are fundamentally as a person. But the things that happen in a relationship, that has happened in a relationship, I can't do that. And I think that's the difference we have there. Sometimes when we talk about this, love is a feeling, but people's actions in relationships are what cause people to go in the most part. But I would say this as far as divorce is concerned. Of all those I know in my peer group, that have gotten divorced, men and women. And again, I will never say, especially if they were in a really just emotionally toxic, like your mental health is important, okay?
mm,
But I would say the women that I know that have gotten divorced, that I understand the aspects of their marriage. While I wouldn't say I always agreed with what their decisions were, I understood, based on the emotional aspect of things and how things played out over years and how there was no change. All of the men, though, we talked about, like, the decision to leave was absolutely horrible, regardless of how horrible their situation got. It was not an easy decision, and it was, and I mean, of all of the men in my peer group that I know that I've known, and every single one of these men I've known more than half my life. Okay, there was infidelity, there was emotional abuse, there was so much there that even pushed them to leave.
mm,
um so it was, I would say, the women's issues paled in comparison to why the men leave, and even some of them aren't even divorced yet officially. And it's been
oh wow,
years just because of the kids, and like there men have so much to lose in divorce. And I think that also plays into as well when we come to men have in traditionally have
right,
so much more to lose when it comes to the divorce proceedings. I have a even just child custody, and how it's just absolutely ridiculous, even if, like, the man has to be shown to be, the woman has to be shown to be absolutely horrible, a horrible person. And even then it's still in a lot of jurisdictions, not all, but even then it's still, oh no, it's going to go with the mom, or oh, you only get 50/50, you still got to pay child support, or you still got to pay this, you still got to pay that. There is just so much there that a man stands to lose in a divorce, that I think it takes a lot more for them to make that decision, especially with kids are involved. And I'm not saying it's easy for women to do it either, but when you look at the reasons, and again, even when I've heard from female friends about friends of theirs and people they work with, and they tell the stories of why they got divorced, I would say 60% of the time, from a man, it sounds like the most frivolous bullshit to break up your family for. We talk about, I
Mhm.
want more. You talk about, I can do better, or I've outgrown him, or like, those are such, the reasons. I'm not saying all, but when I hear
So, from
conversations,
your friends and your personal experience, what do they say is why they get divorced?
um, a lot of it's been just very, if not physical abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse, um, at least from the women, trying to, um, work things out, and just their spouses just were not at a point to, where they wanted to change or make a change for the benefit of the marriage.
Mhm.
Um, you can only live in an environment for so long before it really starts to impact you. As
Right.
far as the men are concerned, I mean, we're talking about sexless marriages, we're talking about marital alienation, we're talking about infidelity. I mean, we're talking about physical violence in some cases that have been perpetrated upon them.
Mm.
Hell, we're talking about some cases actual fraud that has happened in the
So,
case of,
don't you think those are good reasons for divorce?
yeah,
Okay, so I don't, my life is my life. I don't feed into social media to a certain extent.
right.
At the end
Same.
of the day, I like my own personal experience and my personal thought and opinion on things,
Mhm,
not what everybody else want to just agree with and, go based off and from.
mhm,
Like, I don't, I never been married. You
right,
know, my child's father is married though. They known each other as long as much as I known them. So they still going strong. They staying together because they actually love each other.
right.
There's no violence. There's no extra shit. There's nothing going on. That's why their marriage is still thriving. So I only can base my opinion on my beliefs, what I believe in my thoughts. Not every situation is because she thinks she can do better. Some situations are what you just said. Those everything you said is valid reasons for a divorce. We just grew apart. We both want two different things now. It's
I
not good for us, and we just need to separate.
I I I have issues with that growing apart thing.
Okay.
Because we want two different things. How could I put it this way? I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of times when I've heard those comments and I've heard those reasons, there has never been any work to try to find a medium. Because yeah, you grow apart. You become two different people, but
Mhm.
you grow in separate ways, but you're still on the same path together. That doesn't change. It's still an aspect of being together. I mean, if you growing apart, that sounds like, oh, I want more. Oh, I want
Mhm.
more money, or he's not ambitious enough. I'm like, he's happy in what he's doing. Why can't you champion your husband, the fact that he's happy and content with his life and what he does? Why is more needed? Oh, she's like, you married her when she was 300 pounds. You liked her then. Oh, now, like, I don't know, I don't really like her. I find her repulsive. Well, you married her then.
Mhm.
So for you to want to get divorced because she's still
Yeah, those
overweight.
sound like selfish reasons.
Yes,
Very
exactly,
selfish reasons.
exactly. And I say, so when I hear about growing apart, if there's no work that's been done, if there's no real conversation and communication, then I think I feel like, in my opinion, based on my own personal experience as well as hearing anecdotal evidence from others, usually when those comments are made, no real work has been done in the marriage, and it's usually one sided. Not saying all the
Mhm.
time, but usually one side. That's why when I hear people say we grew apart, no, you grew away and you purposely grew away and you didn't work because love is an action, marriage is work. And if
Right.
you stop working, added, yeah, you're going to grow apart. So that means you or he or both of y'all stop working. So that's why I say it's BS, because you stop working at this. Every single day I got up, I worked at being married. Some days I failed, other days I achieved, other days I was Superman, but every day was work. And that's
Yeah,
what people
any
don't get.
marriage. The reason why, from what I've seen and heard from all these podcasters and stuff, the reason they have longevity of marriage is because they worked on it. They
Hmm.
wanted to be married. They wanted to be together. I think it was even LeBron James. He had a podcast interview recently,
Hmm.
and his wife was in there with them talking. He's like, "I'm the only child. I don't want to be alone. I love my wife. I love our dynamic, and yeah, I'm gonna fight for this. At the end of the day, I love this. I love being married. I love
Yep.
this
Yes.
dynamic of us being together. Like Jay Z and Beyonce, would you say they both have the spotlight? Are they both powerhouses in their own individual way?
I honestly, if you want to say who's more famous than the other, definitely Beyonce is more famous than Jay Z, in my opinion.
Well, Beyonce just had more of the spotlight, but Jay
Yes, more
Z
the
has his
spotlight.
own.
No,
Yes,
he
Jay.
does. He does.
Mm,
That's without question. But if I'm talking about, like, again, going to that Steph Curry share thing, spotlight. Oh, Beyonce firmly has more spotlight.
mm,
Beyonce was, I think, in many respects, has always been the bigger star. And again,
mm,
not saying like equating success, but I think Beyonce has always been the biggest star or the bigger
mm.
star, and just because her music goes in different places than Jay Z's music does. And again, no disrespect to him, he's one of the best selling rappers all time, and he's a mogul and this and that, he's done it and that. So, but yeah, I would say Beyonce is the bigger star. Period.
Okay. All right. Well,
So, all right. So yeah, we can go on forever. But Ren,
right.
tell everybody where they can find you.
You can follow me on Instagram, _Weaver. You can follow me on Facebook too. What is it? Ren Graves on Facebook to see the comments that we were just talking about of what went wrong with relationships and love
Yep.
nowadays. It's
Yes.
very toxic. Very toxic
Very,
out
very
here.
toxic.
Okay, people, stay safe and
Yeah.
be safe. Okay,
Eh,
it's crazy.
right. I will say this, Rain, and before I sign off as well. One of the things we always come back to, and I think is very important, even in all of this, communication is really key to any successful relationship.
Right,
Honest and open communication. Men have to really listen to what their women have to say. And women have to provide a place for men to say what they have to say and to listen and to not jump to conclusions or hear what they want to hear.
right,
Listen to the words that are being said and take it in and really understand and empathize, and vice versa. Only then can you really figure out if your relationship is going to stand the test of time, because once you start listening, you start hearing, you start understanding your partner. And also, I'll say this, and this is something I was having a conversation with someone the other day. Too many people have a hard time putting themselves in other people's shoes to really understand what they're going through, especially younger people, from what I hear. But even with people my age and your age, uh, when it comes to relationships, people have a hard time. My wife and I, you know, things were never perfect. There are times where I was like, it was not easy, and no marriage is. But one of the things that kept me going, and one of the things that helped me deal with a lot of the downs, is putting myself in her shoes, understanding what she's been through, understanding why she feels the way she feels. Because sometimes my point is, you have no reason to feel this way. Like, the
mm,
circumstances that we're talking about, we're dealing with, does not necessitate the feelings or the actions you just did. But to help me understand and to better communicate, I looked at her, and this also comes with knowing your partner, looked at her to understand where she was coming from, why she got to this point of view, why she had these feelings that she did, even if I didn't think that, okay, this situation is not warranted. That, putting yourself in your spouse's shoes or your partner's shoes, to understand where they're coming from, even if you don't agree, because you don't have to agree. There are many
Mhm.
things that I didn't agree with my wife as far as how she felt about things or how she saw things or her viewpoint. But I did everything I could to put myself in her shoes to understand where she came from with those things. And I like to think at times she did the same as well.
Mhm.
That is very important to really having a healthy relationship, or at least trying to, because sometimes y'all just ain't supposed to be together. That's just the
Right.
facts of the matter. But that communication piece, I think, is something we lost and we lose. And again, that selfishness aspect of things, that that blocks us from really communicating, because all we want is what we want. All we want to say what we want to say, and we want that other person to understand and in many ways comply with how we feel and what we want and how we see things, and not being respectful or taking into account their feelings, emotions, or the fact that they are a different position in this relationship. They are the man, you're the woman. Inherently, we're going to see things different based on our position in life and in a relationship.
Mhm.
And I'll say this. So I had my wife, right? I love my wife. I loved her dearly. Hated driving with her. She was the worst passenger seat driver ever. There's so many days I wanted to pull them like, get out, be
Mm.
quiet. And one of the things I really had to explain to her was, we are going to see different things based on a position. You're in the passenger seat. I am in a driver's seat. You're going to see things in a different perspective than I will. So your comments or your questioning is based on your position, not based on where I am. Because my position, I see things totally differently.
Mhm.
And without understanding that, you're always going to see things a certain way that are not the case for me.
Right.
And I think that we in relationships in general, we forget that we are in two different positions in our relationships, and
Mhm.
we don't come to each other as a team with our different relationship perspectives. We come at it from, this is my perspective, and my perspective is a perspective for the relationship. And because I see it this way, you should see it this way as well. And that is a fundamental flaw. And I think how we, excuse me, not we, how many of us view and operate in relationships, again, based on what we hear both online as well as our own circle of friends. I know you've heard many things and you're like, why did you leave him, or why did you leave her? Like, that's some stupid shit.
Right.
It's like, especially when you say you love this person, or you were married to this person, or y'all got kids together. Like, really, that's why, like, that doesn't make any sense. And it comes across as very self-centered and shallow.
Right. Right.
Right.
I always say this, like, because some men think a woman's just supposed to submit, obey. You supposed to just do what I say.
Oh,
I'm
that's a
not a
whole nother
dog.
conversation about submission.
Yeah, I'm not a dog.
Right.
Okay. I want you to lead. I want to follow you.
Hmm.
But like I say, this, I want you to be in control, but I don't want you to be controlling.
Right.
There's a difference.
There's a big
Okay.
difference.
Be in control, but don't be controlling. Like you have to. I am still a person. I am still a human being. I do have my own identity. Um, so if you want to be in the leader, you have to lead. Show me leadership. You have to show me like, oh my, look at my man. Look at him go. Look at him do what he's supposed to be doing. Yes, that makes me submit. Cause
Hmm.
yes, I got this man. I got this hard worker, this good father, this good provider, this good X, Y, and Z. Yes, that's what women want. That's what women look for on a regular basis.
Right.
Don't be like, oh, just do what I say. Who you? You not
Yeah.
my daddy. That's what
Nobody should come
takes the
across that way.
combativeness. Cause it's like
Yeah.
you do what I say. Like who the fuck you talking to?
Any man that comes across like that has problems, because that's not how you
Mm,
operate.
Right.
Basically. But yeah, that's it. Rand, we can get the submissions. That's a whole nother conversation because they don't really get that, and we already know they don't get that. We already know. But thank you, Rand. Make sure you check out. Excuse me, all her links. I am Web Style Man with Fragrance. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your listening ear. Remember, stay safe out there and be blessed.
Same.